What do you want? We had fun yesterday, by the way, so if you ever, we have fun every day, but if you ever see one of the counseling, coaching, communication workshops advertised, come. We had a great one yesterday. We talked about dealing with difficult people, and of course we couldn't find any subjects to work with, but we talked about it theoretically. As part of our sharing, Betty Lou introduced a little bit of the Enneagram, and there will be an Enneagram workshop. I'm selling it, by the way. You'll love it. So there'll be an official Enneagram workshop. But part of that, in the Enneagram, they talk about 3 instinctual subtypes. And sort of like everybody in the world can be divided up lots of different ways, but there are 3 basic starting points in responding to the world, instinctual subtypes. Each of these has different wants. So the self-preserving subtype wants a happy life. The one-on-one or relational subtype wants a happy relationship. And the social global subtype wants a happy world. Now what's funny is there isn't any one want that's better than another want. And if you thought so, by the way, erase that, at least for this morning. Open your mind to the possibility that all wants are equally valuable. What they represent is they represent our starting point. See, wanting, I know this says, you shouldn't want and all that kind of stuff, and even some of the scriptures we read, don't want anything. There's nothing wrong with wanting. Wanting in and of itself isn't good or bad. What wanting is a tool for increased awareness. Whenever you want something, that's a call to be aware. See, all of our wants show us where we think we are lacking. And I'll tell you the truth that you already know intellectually, and that is we're really not lacking for anything, but our wants tell us where we think we are lacking. The other value of a want is it shows us our own personal conditions that we have for experiencing a good life. If I only have that, everything would be good. If that were taken care of, things would be better. If that were done, I could do this, and that would be really good. So, the subtitle for today very easily could have been, Why the Law of Attraction Doesn't Appear to Work. You ever notice that? I mean, if the law of attraction really were as simple as they made it sound like, they wouldn't be telling us all how to do it, we'd just be doing it. All right. So the question to ask yourself, is there anything that you want to be, do, or have? I feel one affirmative there.
Yes.
Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look beneath that. Because underneath whatever it is you want to be, do, or have, is it possible that there really is something that you do not want to be, do, or have that you're currently experiencing? Is that what's motivating your want? I'm going to say this 1,000 ways, only a dozen this morning, but in different ways. But your focus, where your attention actually is way more powerful than your words. The law of attraction always works. It cannot not work. You always, underline 100 times, attract who you are. You always attract according to your predominant thoughts or focus. The law of attraction is kind of like the cosmic Xerox machine, or the 3D printer. That's the big thing now. You get out exactly what you put in. It works every single time. Remember that old computer programming term? Garbage in, garbage out? Well, that's the law of attraction. It makes no judgments. So I want to look this morning, because we haven't actually done this in a formal way for a little while now, at the 5 unity principles. And we have a bulletin which helps you out. They're all right on here. And what I want to say is the 5 unity principles represent a formula. So I want you to start looking at it differently. And by the way, it also represents a fan. I noticed that. It helps. I'm a fan of formulas. So. It represents a formula. And that formula always works. And if we start looking at it as a formula, rather than just words or affirmations, maybe we'll begin to understand ourselves better and also understand other people better. This formula works not only for unity, wow, we made it up. It works for everyone everywhere in the whole world, whether they believe the statements or not, or whether they understand them or not. This formula always works. See, the results, the output of applying this formula totally depend on what you consider the presence to be. See, in unity, we consider the presence God. So say with me, if you will, our first unity principle, God is. Say it with me. There is only one presence and one power as the universe and as my life. God, the good, omnipotent. All right, so we got that. So in unity, God is the presence. Now, if there's only one presence and one power, then the second comes. I am, I'm that. Read it with me. Our essence is God. Therefore, we are inherently good. Wow. All right. Third principle. Always works, guys. Thoughts create. We are creators as God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. Now, if we want to create more of this God stuff, then we got to do principle number 4. Align with God. Through prayer and meditation, we align our heart and mind with God. And the 5th unity principle, it sounds like it's like, go, now that you've learned this, you've said this, go do it. What I want to tell you, it's also a statement that when you say all of this, when you believe all of this, you automatically do it. 5th principle, live it. Through thoughts, words, and actions, we live the truth we know. Another way to say that, by the way, is through thoughts, words, and actions, we demonstrate the truth that we currently believe. So that's our formula. And that formula, by the way, doesn't represent what we actually do believe in our heart of hearts. It represents what we want to believe. Because see, if you already believed it, you wouldn't have to say it. So we're reminding ourselves. That's our application of this formula. That's the unity application of this formula. But remember, different people define the presence differently. So just a quick example for you. You know, there's this whole thing about it's either love or it's fear. You know, this Course in Miracles thing and in the World thing and all that kind of stuff. So if I happen to be a person that believes that love is what makes up this world, then I'm going to view it differently, the world differently, and I'm going to act differently than somebody believes that fear is making up this world. I want to just say at the outset of this section here, this is not rocket science. This is a 2+ math problem. A 2+ math problem. That means that if you take 1 plus 2, you end up with the quiz. If you don't like your 3 and you want to end up 4, you have to add a 2 plus 2 to get 4. And if you don't like 4, what if you add 3 plus 2 is
5. Oh my God.
All right? So understand that the answer always is a direct reflection of what we put in that number 1 spot. Because essentially it's just a 2 plus equation. All right, so I live in a world and I see and I notice the presence of love. Therefore, I am love. Make sense? Yeah. If love is all there is, then I'm love. And my loving thoughts create much more love. And because I want to keep doing that, I align myself with love. And there's no way that I can't just experience love in my life and in my world. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, what if I perceive a fearful world? Some of you, by the way, do that sometimes. Anybody notice that? We do buy insurance. We do lock our cars. We do stay out of those parts of town. So if I believe in the presence of fear in the world, then I, by definition, am fearful. And my fear thoughts will then create more fear. And in order not to be hurt or caught off guard, I align with fear. And I experience more fear in my life and in the world. Do you see how this works? The same formula, different input. Now, there's always the question of lack. See, if I believe I'm living in a lacking world, a world that is lacking, the haves and the have-nots. By the way, have you ever heard a have complain about the haves and have-nots? No, it's just the have-nots that complain that they don't have, okay? So if you believe that you don't have everything that you need, you're believing in lack. And therefore, by the way, you are lack. And your lack thoughts create more lack. And because you're trying to figure out how to beat the system, you align yourself with lack and you experience lack in your life and in the world. See, it's not good or bad. It is just a formula. So what if you just looked at somebody who's way different than you, who you judge the heck out of, and you recognize that they just have a different definition of what that presence is. They're exactly the same as you, working with a different first number in that equation. There's a little tagline to our fourth unity principle. It's align with God. Through prayer and meditation, we align our heart and mind with God. Denials and affirmations are tools we use. Charles Fillmore was huge on denials. He basically said, by the way, deny once, affirm forever.
Yeah.
So don't spend your whole life in denial. So he's a big fan of affirmations. And so the thing I want to say, how do I say this politely? We are always affirming the truth that we currently believe, even if it's not conscious. I would never want that. Some part of me does, or I wouldn't have it. So remember, I'm just trying to make it real simple. If you don't like the results of the equation, change the input. If you don't like the experience you're having, then all you have to do is change your mind. Now, affirmations are a great tool for doing that. And I want to put this in some perspective. Affirmations are what I call a transition tool. They're used to move you from one place to another. That's their only value in that period of transition. And by the way, affirmations are not to fill your mind with positive thoughts. Affirmations are to help you notice where you have resistance to the positive thought. So we don't run around spouting all these positive thoughts all the time. I'd like to have a quiet mind and a normal conversation. But in order to do that, I have to listen to these thoughts and notice where my internal thoughts go, no, thanks, not here. So I want you to do an experiment with me. I want you to repeat after me. I unconditionally love, trust, and respect myself. I unconditionally love, trust, and respect myself. Listen, inside, listen. I don't know about you. This time I've heard sometimes. Past times I've heard, yeah, sure. Nice thought. Yeah, if they agree. Or if it's say. You understand what I'm saying? Did you hear anything?
All right.
All right, good.
You're advanced.
So the deal is, when you use affirmations, the job is to pay attention to what your mind says. If it says, all right, great, choose another affirmation, that was good. Affirmations themselves are not meant to be the truth. It helps to have a more truthful affirmation, but they're not meant to be the truth. They're not the ultimate goal. They are just a tool. Remember what I said before? Once you know it, you don't have to affirm it. Once it's clear, once it's a part of who you are, you don't have to convince yourself. So here's the tricky part, and I alluded to this earlier, but when we are affirming, if you're honest with yourself, you are usually focused on what you do not want. Most of the times when you affirm abundance is because you experience some sense of lack. If you experienced abundance already, why would you affirm abundance? That makes sense? So I want you to look, because every affirmation that you use, every desire that you have, is in response to some condition or situation in your life that you do not like. And there's nothing wrong with that, except for the fact what we pay attention to increases. Oh no! So if you're focused on what's not working and then create an affirmation to counteract that, I just want you to know that the longer you stay in that process, the more you're going to have an experience of what's not working for you. So at some place in time, you've got to break that cycle. Your intention. Is the intention really to know this, or is the intention to move away from that? Your intention is way more powerful than your words. So just be aware. Whatever your intention is, that will determine the quality of your life and the quality of your experience in the world. Another fly in the ointment. I know, they're all over the place.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. See, it's not just a matter of focusing on what we want. We have to be aware of why we want it. That's where the real growth comes. You all know you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons, and that changes the whole equation. You know, it's sort of like giving with guilt versus giving with love. For those of you who have teenagers, you know that it's very different if you're doing something because you have to versus doing something because you want to. The teenagers. when you're giving a gift, are you freely giving the gift, or do you somehow want something in return? When you're loving someone, are you just loving them, or do you want them to love you? It's subtle, but we need to be aware. And the key here is honesty. Honesty with yourself. See, none of these things is wrong if we have the awareness of what's going on. If we're honest with ourselves, we have an opportunity to make choices and to make changes. All right, so now we've figured out how the world works. And actually know how to change our experience too, but the real question is, how do we change our mind? And I just made this up last night. And it's like, oh, that's nice, 4 steps. We could do that, okay. So step number 1, I put the numbers on later, and I thought, oh, that makes a nice thing. Observe your life. How do you change your mind? You observe your life. You notice, you become aware. Some people call it mindfulness. You pay attention to your life. The second step is you take absolute total responsibility for your thoughts and your actions. My choice, I did it. Number 3 is don't blame or judge, either yourself or someone else. When you blame, you lose all of your power to transform your life. When you blame someone or something out there, you have given all of the power away. So take full responsibility, and don't blame yourself either. So number 4, I put down, don't identify with the ego. See, the ego is not who you really are. One of the things that we teach all the time in our healing classes mostly is awareness without judgment is healing. If you can become aware of what is, not judge it, good or bad, by the way, then things will always change. And if you're constantly aware, non-judging, things will always get better and better and better. That's sometimes hard to do. You know, it's sort of like you do your favorite, you know, whether it's leave the keys somewhere, you don't know where they are, or you forget to do something, you know. Why am I always doing that? Great affirmation, guys. You just identified yourself with the problem and made it permanent. So try this if you have a habit of that. Wow, lost my keys. For the millionth time, by the way. Lost my keys. How unlike me. How unlike me. Very much like my ego, by the way, but how unlike me. Buddha talked about, I think there were 7 poisons of the world, you know, greed and attachment and da-da-da-da. I don't know what they are. But anyway, Buddha said, blame the poison, not the person. You know, if you were in a hospital visiting somebody and they had this huge, you know, raging fever going on and they were delirious and lashing out and saying ugly things and all that kind of stuff, you wouldn't say, what a lousy person you are. You'd recognize that they're acting out at the effect of the fever. The world is in a fever, guys. Blame the poison, not the person. Flip Wilson actually said this as well as anybody else. He's made this pop in. The devil made me do it. You know, blame the ego. If you need to do it, blame the ego. Don't blame the spirit. Don't identify with the problem. On a little side note about the ego, I just want to say, in my view, don't try and get rid of the ego. I mean, there's a lot of talk about get rid of the ego. The ego does lots of really good things so that you're not distracted by lots of things in this world. Now, it's gotten a little power hungry and carried away, but take responsibility for training your ego so you can use those talents, skills, and abilities that only the ego possesses to aid you on your spiritual path. You know, don't fire the butler, train him. Now, there's a Buddhist saying, and this probably was not Buddha himself who said this, but it's a big thing in the Buddhist community. Then the manure of your experience becomes the fertilizer of your enlightenment.